Good evening and welcome to this forum for the candidates in the August 9th primary election for Anoka County Sheriff. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Anoka, Blaine, and Coon Rapids. My name is Liz Nordling and I'm a league-trained moderator and member, and I do not live in Anoka County. As a trusted volunteer organization, the League of Women Voters does not support or oppose political parties or candidates. We sponsor forums like this to provide voters an opportunity to hear candidates' views about issues of interest in the upcoming election. This forum is being video recorded by NorthMetroTV. You may view it on the NorthMetroTV website at LWV ABCMN.org or on YouTube. The candidates participating in today's forum have all agreed to the forum rules which were included in their invitation to participate. The candidates will have 90 seconds to answer questions. Candidates' remarks are being timed to assure equality of time. We'll begin in alphabetical order and then alternate thereafter. All candidates have been invited, and they are Thomas Gagnon, Paul Lensmeyer, and Brad Wise. Instead of an opening statement, the candidates have been given 2 questions that we will begin with. Each will have up to 90 seconds to respond to each question. Thomas Gagnon is not able to attend tonight, so I will be reading his answers to the first 2 questions. And the first question is, what is your motivation to run for this office, and what experience or knowledge would help you to serve effectively? And since we're going in alphabetical order, I will be reading Thomas Gagnon's response first. I am running for Anoka County Sheriff because I want to play a more significant role in keeping our community safe. My family lives in this community, and I do not want Anoka County to become what Hennepin County has become. I want to rededicate the commitment to the community involvement and help create lasting partnerships with the Sheriff's Office, community members, and businesses. I was born and raised in the city of Anoka. I graduated from Anoka Senior High School in 1998. Since I was 14 years old, I have held a part-time or full-time job. I was part of the Key Club, a community service organization. I also participated in Taekwondo and kickboxing for all 4 high school years. I then graduated from Anoka Ramsey Community College, Coon Rapids campus with a 2-year degree. I then started as a reserve officer with the City of Anoka Police Department while attending St. Cloud State University. I completed a summer internship with the Anoka Police Department. The St. Cloud Police Department hired me as a community service officer. I was a member of the Criminal Justice Association. I graduated from St. Cloud State University in 2003 with a 4-year degree in criminal justice. I became a licensed police officer in December of 2003. City policy prevents me from stating which agency employs me, but I will say that they love a Halloween parade and is the county seat. During my time as a police officer, I have had the privilege and opportunity to serve in many different capacities, including as reserve program advisor, where I teach adults about what law enforcement does. And the 90 seconds is up for Thomas's opening statement. We will now go to Paul Lensmeyer for his response to the question of what is your motivation to run for this office and what experience or knowledge would help you to serve effectively.
All right, well, thank you. I've worked with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office for over 25 years. I've risen through the ranks and have learned to appreciate the complexities of the office and the important services that we provide. When Sheriff Stewart announced he was retiring, I knew we needed experienced, trusted, and genuine servant leadership to replace him. This is what has motivated me to run for the office of sheriff. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice, a Master of Arts degree in police leadership. I have attended Northwestern University Center for Public Safety, School of Police Staff and Command, and also the National Command and Staff College. I am the Senior Commander of the Sheriff's Office Patrol Division, in charge of the largest division of the office. I'm in charge of providing law enforcement services to 8 of the 21 communities in Anoka County. Altogether, this population is at 80,000 people. I'm also in charge of providing specialty and supportive services to all of Anoka County. My division is home to over 90 members of the Sheriff's Office. I manage an annual budget of over $10 million. I've been under budget every year while ensuring our team has the equipment and technology they need to safely perform their duties. For the past 11 years, I've been part of the Sheriff Stewart's command team, and we have faced many challenges. Between the pandemic, riots, and overall civil unrest, we have faced these challenges head on. We have kept Anoka County safe while protecting the constitutional rights of every member of our community. As your sheriff, I will continue to maintain law and order within the borders of Anoka County and protect the constitutional rights of our community.
Thank you. Now answering his first question is Brad Wise.
Thank you very much. First off, I do want to thank the League of Women Voters for giving me this opportunity, as they have a long and storied history of political influence. What's my motivation for running for this office is actually, like Commander Lensmeyer, the opportunity presented by the retirement of James Stewart offered the chance. In my case, I've recently retired as police chief for the city of Coon Rapids. I served that city for 27 years, where I rose through the ranks and did basically every job that was offered within the organization. When I was appointed chief in 2011, I inherited an organization that was very proud, very effective, and delivered good services for our community. In that time, our community has reduced serious crime by 50%. Officer morale is as high as it's ever been, and our agency has become a destination law enforcement agency for other disaffected officers that are working in other places. One thing I want to say about my opportunity here to work as a sheriff is that one of my favorite sayings is that good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. While I have little interest in highlighting bad decisions, the reality is the 11 years I served as police chief, being a leader of an organization where I had to manage every division and the budgets to include critical incidents, those experiences make me well prepared to step into the role as sheriff and to successfully address crime trends in our county, as well as build on the partnerships that are within our county. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the second question that the candidates received in advance, and it goes to Paul Lensmeyer first. What are your goals for Anoka County's future?
Well, I believe our society is broken. You don't have to look very far to see the brokenness in the lives of many of our community members. They've lost hope, but I also see the Sheriff's Office as an instrument of hope. On a daily basis, we answer the cries for help, and I want to help increase the resources available to our community. I will build further relationships with a broad group of our volunteers like Hope for Youth to help with rebuilding our community, providing hope one life at a time. These resources will be reevaluated on a continual basis to ensure we maintain the highest level of service to our community. I believe we can restore hope in our community. We will work to build our capacity to respond to a multitude of possible threats as well. There are threats on the horizon, and we need to be forward-thinking and plan and prepare for Anoka County to respond. We will work on utilizing shared resources throughout the county. Collaboration is key for fiscal responsibility and for the success of responding to threats we will face in the future. My goal is to ensure we are prepared to protect our community with the collaboration of resources to include law enforcement, fire, EMS, and emergency management. I believe Anoka County's future is based on togetherness and unity. I will continually reach out to the community members to build relationships with the broader community of Anoka County. I will ensure our community has a voice in public safety services we provide. As your sheriff, I will be active in Anoka County and will listen and respond to the concerns of our community. I will create advisory groups to assist us in connecting with all members of our community.
Thank you. Next, I will read Thomas Gagnon's response to that question of what are your goals for Anoka County's future. As your sheriff, I will first get the command staff back into patrol cars for one shift a month. This will include me, the sheriff, as well. This is not being done as of right now. Every industry is struggling with staffing. Law enforcement is no exception. This will provide more officers on the street without costing the taxpayers a single dime. With command staff working a patrol shift monthly, it will help create camaraderie among the different ranks, promoting a team mentality. It will also put command staff in touch with the community we serve, providing a better understanding of what is occurring in the community and what the community needs are. I want to start hosting more training at the sheriff's office. When an agency sponsors training, they usually get a few spots for free. This will not cost the taxpayers anything. It will allow the deputies to receive more and better training. A competent and confident workforce is crucial to creating a positive work environment. This will also show the employees of the sheriff's office that I value them and want to help them achieve their goals. I want to take control of the media narrative about the law enforcement professionals in this county. I will work with every law enforcement agency to promote the excellent work that happens every day in law enforcement by using social media platforms and local news stations and papers. We as a society need to be exposed to more positive stories, which plenty are not being told. I will work to create a different kind of partnership with city and county attorneys. I want to invite them to do a ride-along once a month with deputies so they gain an understanding of what law enforcement does instead of reading a stack of papers. And time is up for his statement. We will now go to Brad Wise for his answer.
So my goals for Anoka County's future as they relate to the sheriff's office is number one, reduce crime. We have to remember the purpose for the sheriff's office in the first place, and that's to enhance public safety. The tools in order to get there, number one, include increasing the morale of the officers. I mentioned in my opening statement that the morale of the officers in Coon Rapids is very high. That morale is like a car, meaning the agency itself is the car and the fuel comes from the citizens. Support from the citizens is what gives the officers the energy and commitment to provide the level of service that a community demands and wants. And that will be a big part of the focus for me as sheriff of Anoka County, is that I have to make sure that every staff member, no matter the job, understands and feels that encouragement from the citizens, and that when they feel that, they then will deliver the level of service that the citizens want from their sheriff's department. Secondly, on a more practical level, one of the important elements for our local law enforcement agencies is that we have 10 professionally run police departments in Anoka County that represent the bulk of our populations. One simple thing that could change would be improve the efficiency of the jail. The jail takes a lot of time to book somebody who's been arrested, and if we can address that, we can help the departments serve their communities better. The third thing would be to be mindful of the taxpayers. I'll never forget who's paying the bills.
Thank you. We received many questions online, and now we will begin asking some of them. And the first question goes to you first, Brad Wise. What is your experience in training in labor management relations and administering appropriate discipline under a union contract? How will you ensure that the Sheriff's Department management takes disciplinary actions in a fair, appropriate, and timely manner?
Great question. As a police chief, I've been actively involved in labor management issues because I am the face of the department when it comes to working with the unions and to address discipline. In my department, I have an excellent relationship with all of the union stewards. There's 2 separate unions. That excellent relationship means that they understand that one of my primary goals for them is to help them to have a successful 30-year career. And one of the lines I use all the time with the officers that deviate from our policies, which does happen from time to time, is that I'll say that you have to stop doing that or you won't have a successful career. Your career is going to end. And it can be done in a positive way that makes a difference. I want to transition, since I have a time limit here too, though I want to talk about discipline arbitration because I was at the center of a change in Minnesota statute that passed in 2020 regarding discipline arbitrations, which changed the way arbitrators were selected. And what that wound up achieving is that it removed the incentive for an arbitrator to make 50-50 decisions, what they used to call split the baby, meaning half of our decisions were pro-management, half of our decisions were pro-labor. The essence of that statute change was to have the arbitrators be selected on a rotating basis so that their body of decisions didn't influence what their future decisions would be. Their past wouldn't influence their future. So needless to say, I've been very involved in union negotiations and discipline for years.
Thank you. The question now goes to Paul Lensmeyer. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What is your experience in training in labor management relations and administering appropriate discipline under a union contract? How will you ensure that the Sheriff's Department management takes disciplinary actions in a fair, appropriate, and timely manner?
As the commander of the patrol division, I do oversee the implementation of discipline. I've had several different roles within my career where I've actually issued discipline. I've also participated in the arbitration process with discipline. I think discipline is very important to show accountability as it relates to the services that we provide. I too have very good relationships with our union representatives, our union stewards in the deputy rank, as well as the sergeant's rank. And so I've developed those relationships where they're comfortable for us to have conversations prior to discipline or even on the onset of discipline to make sure that I'm open and transparent regarding the issues that are at hand. I believe that discipline is important, but I too also believe that changing behavior is the most important thing when we look at law enforcement. The Sheriff's Office has been having body-worn cameras and squad cameras for years, and we're under a microscope. The law enforcement profession is under a microscope, and for our Sheriff's Office personnel, this is where I believe we actually shine. And so I usually say to our deputies that, you know what, we will make mistakes, but mistakes are okay as long as we learn from them and move on, because we're all human. Until we figure out how to take the human aspect out of law enforcement, we will have mistakes, but as long as we're transparent and accountable to the community, we'll be in a good spot.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the next question. It'll go to you first, Paul. Do you support the current plans for the new Anoka County Jail?
I do. I think our jail in its current capacity, it offers 238 beds for inmates. We've had numerous issues throughout the 25 years that I've been there with trying to maintain and upkeep the jail in its current condition. We've tried to maintain it and update it in its current situation that it is in. However, we're at a point where we're putting Band-Aids after Band-Aids on things that just need to be replaced. So I am a supporter of it. I think it's a better way for us to serve our community in an updated jail.
Thank you. Mr. Wise?
Thank you. I would say I am qualified in support of it because I do know that the basics of the jail need to be improved. And by basics, I mean the intake area. I mentioned earlier when officers bring an arrestee to the jail, sometimes the delay can be an hour or two before the officer gets back on the street. And I know that that's an engineering problem that the old jail has that a new jail would fix. But there are serious problems related to the plan as it speaks. Serious problem number one is it's really big. It's grown quite a bit, the new footprint for the jail. And I know the citizens of Anoka are rightly concerned about the size of the jail and the cost of that jail too. The jail itself, my understanding, needs to be built in the county seat, which is the city of Anoka, but the current facility is right on their main street, and the Anoka citizens need to be heard. There's definitely some controversy related to that. I do want to hear more voices from the residents of Anoka County, or excuse me, from Anoka City, so that I can understand what their issues are and maybe be able to address those. And the second thing related to the size is simply the cost to the taxpayers, is that we're in a tough economic environment. Budgets are squeezed, family budgets are squeezed, and I want to make sure that any jail facility that's built in our county that was built with a really sharp pencil to make sure that we have no fluff in there and that we provide good basic services without going too extravagant.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Brad. In addition to policing, the Sheriff's Office is responsible for the effective operation of the county jail and the safety of detention officers and inmates. What skills, abilities, and experience will you bring to this aspect of the Sheriff's duties and responsibilities?
My skill and ability that I bring primarily is to be a good listener. As a chief executive law enforcement officer, I operated a small lockup facility at Coon Rapids, so the reality is I don't know what the detention deputies are experiencing on the front line. That said, I have a good set of ears, and I plan to listen and meet with them so that I can understand exactly what the issues are, because I have no doubt that people who work there every day have great ideas on how to make the jail run better. On my website, I knew that would be an issue, so I addressed that situation directly to the Anoka County Sheriff's Office staff in an open letter where I told the jail staff the first place I will be January 1st will be in the jail to work directly within intake so that I understand directly from them what it will take to make the jail a better facility. I want it to be safe. No employee should be unsafe at work. I want it to be efficient, and I want it to, especially with a new jail facility, to come in under budget.
Thank you. The question now goes to Mr. Lensmeyer.
Could you repeat the question for me, please?
In addition to policing, the sheriff's office is responsible for the effective operation of the county jail and the safety of detention officers and inmates. What skills, abilities, and experience will you bring to this aspect of the sheriff's duties and responsibilities?
So for the past 11 years, I've sat in on many command staff meetings, and I've met with our jail commander, our jail lieutenants. I have a firm understanding of the services that they provide in the jail to our inmates, and also the training and the mindset of our detention staff at the jail as well. The detention staff have a very challenging job. They basically work in an area where they're one person or one detention deputy to 60 inmates at a time. And so it's a very dangerous environment. We need to ensure that their training is up to speed. We also need to make sure that they have the support that they need on a daily basis. That support will be through me attending their sergeant's meetings, their roll calls as well, and offering my ability to listen to them, also listen to the command staff that have been there for years. Our current commander has been with the Sheriff's Office for almost 30 years or a little bit over that. She's taken on that role there. She's got a lot of great ideas, and I will listen to the experts to ensure that the ideas that they have and the things that they want to do in the jail will likely increase the efficiencies, but also allow some of those people that work in a jail environment a positive morale, which can be very difficult when you're working in a jail for a career.
Thank you. We'll go to the next question. It goes to you first, Mr. Lensmeyer. How will you ensure that the company providing medical care at the county jail meets or exceeds the minimal standards for medical care, mental health, suicide prevention, and death reviews in jails required under Minnesota Hartzell-Sherrill Act?
Well, this is something that I'm going to have to rely on the experts in the jail for. As I mentioned, our senior commander there is very knowledgeable in the services that we provide and the medical care that our inmates receive. And so we also have 2 lieutenants that are in that position as well. And so their expertise and their knowledge about jail operations, I need to rely heavily on them for those recommendations.
Thank you. The question now goes to Mr. Wise.
Yeah, that's a really important topic, because for sure the expectation is when somebody's brought into the jail and has to serve a sentence that they receive treatment and come out of the jail better than they were when they went in. I mean, that's the goal after all. We're trying to correct people so that they're no longer dangerous or no longer harming our communities. Healthcare is basic. There'll be a thorough review of the healthcare contract. I know there were issues that were related to some of the health services in the previous contractor. That said, that will require a thorough formal review, which I would be happy to lead the charge on. Secondarily, we talked about, or the question mentioned, mental health. There are too many people experiencing mental health issues that are trapped in jails in many cases. Sometimes the mental health issue is what led to the criminal conduct in the first place. Seems that we as a society can do a better job of providing mental health services that maybe people can avoid committing crimes in the first place. That said, the inmates who are amenable to mental health treatment should be offered the opportunity for quality mental health treatment so that we wind up with better people the day they're released.
Thank you. The question now goes to, no, you answered the question.
That would
I'm
be
sorry,
me, I
I'm
believe.
confused. We're going to move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Mr.
Yes.
Wise. We're going to talk about the hiring and training of officers. What will you do to improve the ability of the Sheriff's Department to recruit and retain employees?
Well, number one, you need to have a work environment that people want to be a part of. So at Coon Rapids, for instance, I can tell you about our organization is that the morale is high as a result of community support. And when morale is high, the officers themselves will do the recruiting. They know law enforcement students, they know young kids who are interested in the profession, and they'll do the recruiting for you. But a big piece of that, though, is compensation, and we have to look at the labor agreements and make sure that the deputies are compensated fairly. I know there's an aggressive market out there where other agencies are offering bonuses and raises, and frankly, they're going after a reduced pool of candidates, and many cities are resorting to money to do so. Frankly, the cities that have morale problems are the ones that are having the highest wage rate increases because they're just trying to use that as a substitute. The reality is we don't necessarily have to do that if we have the right environment for the workplace. That said, I mentioned it already in my opening how important morale is, and that morale comes from the citizens, the energy comes from the citizens, and that will be always a focus of mine as sheriff so that the deputies, all the deputies and every employee, whether they're detention or on the road or criminal investigations or wherever, that they feel that support, they feel good about where they're working, and they'll gladly reach out to their friends and peers working elsewhere to make sure that that they know Anoka County Sheriff's Office is a great place to work.
Thank you. The question now goes to Mr. Lensmeyer. What will you do to improve the stability, the ability of the Sheriff's Department to recruit and retain employees?
Well, one of the unique things about the Sheriff's Office is that we provide a lot of unique opportunities. So that's in itself does great for recruitment. But what we've lacked in the last number of years is the ability to hire individuals based on the salaries that we offer. Just recently, I believe in the last 2 months, we get a contract with the deputies that narrowed our longevity from 20 years to 6. And what that allows us to do is hire lateral folks at a higher wage, which gives us a little bit more competitive edge when it comes to hiring new personnel. And that was really important for us because we understand in Anoka County we may not be the top pay, but we want to be competitive. And as the sheriff, it is my duty to ensure that the atmosphere around the sheriff's office, within the buildings that we have at the jail, at the government center, at the main office, remains positive. And I think when you have a positive environment, like the chief said, that is passed along to others, and we become a place that people want to come. We've actually done very well over the last several months in hiring individuals. We have only a few vacancies left, but a lot of that will come down to me as the sheriff creating an atmosphere that allows the deputies to excel and feel supported.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, Mr. Lensmeyer. What factors are most important to consider when recruiting and hiring new employees, new officers?
Well, for me, it's character. When I look to hire, I think that character is something that is something that we look for, and there's something called character-based hiring that is gaining some traction, and I call it hiring for heart. We can teach the job skills to just about anybody, but if we look for people that have the heart for service, we'll be in a good place because we'll be able to take the time to teach them, but we know that their heart and their character is in the right place. One of the things that I like to be positive, and one of the things that we can look at in this time where it's very difficult to hire new officers, new deputies, is that the people that are coming into law enforcement at this time have a heart for service, a true heart for service, unlike ever before. Many of the people that used to come in, maybe they want to do it because of the badge, because of a title, but truly in this environment, if we're looking at something positive regarding it, is that the candidates that we're seeing and that the candidates that I'm hiring are people that want to serve, that have a calling to serve, and that have a heart for our community.
Thank you. Mr. Wise?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to agree with Commander Lensmeyer by starting with character. The most important piece when it comes to hiring is somebody's background check, because of course past behavior is the best predictor of future conduct. So that always has been a part of hiring for the city of Coon Rapids. The other factor that I look for in a new employee is a sense of empathy, because it's something that can't be taught. You either have it or you don't. And by empathy, I mean where I have deputies and staff that are capable of standing in the shoes of the person that they're dealing with, whether it's somebody who's a victim of a crime. I want the deputies to understand what the victim is experiencing, or whether or not it's somebody that they're arresting, is that they need to understand the perspective of the person that they're arresting, because it helps them make better decisions if they know what they're dealing with and can feel that. The third thing, and actually it's something that I've talked about for years in my hiring. In fact, it's a handwritten note that I made to myself in 2011 when I first became chief. And that handwritten note was, I want employees who are glass half full. Glass half full people are positive and energetic. Glass half empty people are cynics. Every organization winds up with at least some cynics. The one problem with cynics is cynics recruit, while glass half full people stand back and watch and wonder whether or not you're a positive person. Thank you.
Thank you. The question goes to you first. The next question, Mr. Wise. What improvements could be made in the training of officers given the multitude of situations they encounter?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every deputy, every law enforcement officer receives robust training far beyond what the mandates are for their licensing. They do so, mostly the agencies, like my own agency, because we would emphasize certain elements like dealing with mental health and so on. Sometimes it's legislative mandates, which lately have been increasing a lot. One of my worries, however, is with the legislative mandates, sometimes the officers and deputies spend so much time training that they're not on the road enough, and it causes some problems with staffing. But that said, is that there's always emerging trends, there's always good ideas. I've been a police officer for 27 years. Throughout that time, my profession has always evolved. I think there were some that would claim that that change has only come recently, or demands for change has only come recently. The reality is we've been changing all along. And again, one of the lines that I say a lot, an officer who worked in 1950, if they could step in a time machine and be transported to 1995 when I started, could immediately go to work, and with the exception of slight differences in the radio and so on, they wouldn't, and some changes in statute, they wouldn't skip a beat. Since 1995 to 2022, if they're in a time machine, they would be completely lost. There's a lot going on, but we can always do better.
Thank you. Mr. Lensmeyer, what improvements could be made in the training of officers given the multitude of situations they encounter?
Well, we try to put our officers, our deputies, our sergeants in situations that prepare them to see how they're going to react when they're under stress. We do this by role-playing. We do this through scenario-based training. We've increased our video-based, scenario-based training as well, which focuses on decision-making. So all these things come into a very complex training environment that, as the chief said, we're required to train a lot. That's a good thing, but there are some negatives to that. One thing that we've done in the Sheriff's Office Patrol Division since I have taken over is that we take our entire division up to Camp Ripley. We do this to train them in stress inoculation, role-playing, and we cover a lot of scenarios like mobile field force training, high-risk stops, active shooter, domestic response. We go through a lot of different trainings in a 12-hour period up there, but we push our officers so that they are prepared to make the best decisions that they can in the shortest amount of time out on the street. And we're just going to continue to push that training to make sure that we're a profession that is on the cutting edge of our training. One thing that's great about Anoka County is that we've always been great at training. We've always done things proactively, addressed issues that prior to them becoming greater issues, and I'm very proud of being a part of the Anoka County law enforcement community that takes an active role in that.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, Mr. Lensmeyer. Do you see a need for a code of conduct, and what impact would that have on the functioning of the department?
I think a code of conduct is fine. We at the Sheriff's Office have a mission statement to protect and serve the community in a manner that preserves the public trust. And overall, any decisions that somebody makes on the street or at home, I often ask a deputy, does that meet our mission statement? Do the actions that you're providing or that you're doing, does that meet and maintain the public trust? And so it's a mission statement that we've had for a long time. And I'm very proud to have that. But it's very simple, is that are we maintaining the public trust by the actions that we're doing? And if you can say yes, you're likely in the right. If you can say no, then you need to change your behavior. So overall, whether we need a code of conduct or a solid mission statement that the Sheriff's Office has, I am all for it, because I think that we need direction. We need accountability, and those type of mission statements or code of conducts certainly help in that endeavor.
Thank you. Mr. Wise?
Yeah, we've always had a code of conduct. We have a big standard operating procedure manual in the city of Coon Rapids, and I know there's one at the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. It has a lot of detail on how to behave. The short answer, though, is that you behave ethically at all times. You keep your moral compass in place, and you never deviate from that plan. That is the expectation from day one for somebody who comes on the department, and it's the expectation that remains throughout their career. And as we talked about discipline earlier, the issue with discipline is it's not needed if you stay on top of the employee's ethics from the minute they pin on a badge and they move forward. One of the things that I say to new officers when we go through a badge pinning is that I remind them it's the citizen's badge, that it belongs to the citizens, and they're entrusting you with it. It is your obligation to honor them and respect the people who you are meant to serve, and that you never do anything to tarnish that badge. It's a visceral reminder to them, and it's one that it's such an important symbol, and it's one that we use and highlight regularly.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, Mr. Wise. What data can the Sheriff's Department maintain regarding women's safety? Can this information be made readily for the public so they can better understand how women are treated after rape or other acts of violence, and if there is justice for the victims?
That actually probably represents an opportunity for something that maybe hasn't been done as much, at least in a systematic way. Again, I emphasize empathy of new deputies, or empathy of the department as a whole, and empathy is essential for delivering the kind of service for a crime victim who happens to be female. The reality is, I'm certain that there are things that we could do better as an organization. I'm thinking of where I came from, and I'm thinking about where I want to go to here at the Sheriff's Office. And the answer lies in following up with the victims themselves in the aftermath. So we have great advocates helping victims through, say, a court process, or when the offender is being released and so on. I don't recall there being victim services that are focused on the well-being of women as a whole, as they're trying to piece their lives together after something so traumatic as a violent crime. Thank you to whoever asked that question, because you're making me think, and it's a real opportunity, and I think I can make a difference in that area.
Thank you. Question now goes to Mr. Lensmeyer.
You know, I think it's important to have dialogue with the community, and specifically the victims of crimes and women victims of crimes. And as I've advocated for mental and behavioral health advisory groups, I think this is a great piece for us to add, is a victims group that we can actually talk with the victims about the processes that they went through and how we can improve our response, our delivery of resources, and walk through the process to make sure that we're meeting the needs that they have. You know, nobody knows what a victim goes through than a victim, and once they get to the other side and can be advocate for others and be an advocate for the sheriff's office as well, so that we can improve our response, improve our empathy. Where do we need to go as an organization to ensure that we can care for and provide hope to these victims of these crimes? And certainly it's a very sensitive topic, and as the chief said, a very good topic to discuss. And it sounds like as I've been working with the community, these advisory groups are going to be a big hit. They're going to be something that we're going to be able to really understand where our victims, where our community is coming from, and we'll be able to better serve them by listening to them and providing the public safety services that they specifically want.
Thank you. Next question goes to you first, Mr. Lensmeyer. What steps will you take to reduce domestic violence in Anoka County?
That's a great question. We see, along with our mental health challenges, the fact that I've discussed hope and the loss of hope in our community. People are looking for hope at the bottom of a bottle, at the end of a needle. They're taking out their aggression on the people that they've sworn to love and cherish for their lives. I think overall we need to get into the schools better and talk about domestic violence, talk about how to prevent it, how to control anger, how to deal with mental health challenges. This is also a key part of the mental behavioral health advisory board that I'm establishing. But I think we need to be open about it. We need to be talking about it. We need to be in the schools and discussing it with our young people, because the fact is that many of our young people are seeing this violence at home and they're going to repeat it. And so we see the repeating of domestic violence in homes with kids. And so I think talking about it, bringing it to the schools, being open with our young people about how to and when to call 911 for those resources. But yeah, we have a definite problem when we talk about mental health, domestic violence, and I think we need to start with our young people to give them hope when they see what's happening in their family unit.
Thank you. The question now goes to Mr. Wise.
In Anoka County, actually, we have a robust program that has become a national model for other places that's called a lethality assessment program. And what that is when law enforcement officers are inserted into domestic violence situations, they have a script that they follow, an actual program, to try to assess how much risk is in the household. Because clearly we want to address the most volatile situations the most aggressively. The essence of that lethality assessment program is to make sure that the information that's at the crime scene makes its way to the courthouse so judges understand how much risk these women are facing in these domestic violence situations. That model is been pushed out to other places around the country, and other places are very interested in that. In addition, Anoka County has a very robust relationship with Alexandra House, which is an entity, a nonprofit that provides services for women who are victims of domestic violence. Again, it boils down to enhancing people that are providing the best services, and they're very victim focused, meaning they stand ready to provide victims with whatever they need. Whether it's additional information, whether it's resources to get out of the household, or whether it's more violence prevention, or simply follow through in dealing with a criminal charge. But there's always opportunities to do everything better, like I said, and we'll work on that.
Thank you. We're going to shift to communication now, and the first question goes to you, Mr. Wise. The Anoka Sheriff's execution of a no-knock warrant at an incorrect address in Coon Rapids in 2021 revealed a lack of communication between the Sheriff's Office and city police departments. What will you do to improve communication and cooperation among police departments within Anoka County?
Well, first off, I would say that I'm in the really fortunate position in that every police chief in Anoka County, all 10 of them, I would call friends. They're good peers. They have differing visions for their cities. I respect all their visions, and they know me well. And when it comes to communication, the thing that's most important is pre-established relationships. For those people that you don't have pre-established relationships with, you need to work on expanding those relationships. Frankly, as it relates to the no-knock search warrant, there are a number of issues that incident exposed. And frankly, in hindsight, there are things that I could have handled better because I was in the midst of all that. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, good decisions come from experience. Experience comes from bad decisions. So I've learned from those sorts of things. But that said, it boils down to whether things go right or whether things go wrong, you need to have the ability to pick up the phone and by all means avoid emails or writing. Pick up the phone and talk to people, or go to their office and have a face-to-face conversation so that you can get on a better understanding. Thanks.
Thank you. The question now goes to Mr. Lensmeyer.
Well, I have a great relationship with all the chiefs in Anoka County as well, and we do have a great relationship all across Anoka County, whether it's our fire chiefs or our police chiefs, and I think that relationship building makes it easier to have those communication periods, and picking up the phone call, sending a text. There's a lot of things that happen within the chief of and the sheriff that communication really isn't an issue, and I'm not sure that the communication was necessarily an issue with the no-knock warrant. It's my understanding that the sheriff's office did provide communication with that, but at the same time, the basic understanding is that we need to have good communication, and Anoka County law enforcement does. The chiefs all have a monthly meeting where we share a meal together and we go through topics, and we have those discussions, whether it's the chiefs or the captains or commanders. Anoka County has a very unique relationship, and I'm very proud of that relationship that we have. And so I'm not sure that communication was an issue regarding the no-knock warrant. I'm just happy to be a part of the Anoka County law enforcement community where we have great communication.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, Mr. Lensmeyer. What do you think are the best practices for investigating officer-involved shootings and informing the public of the results of such investigations and any resulting policy or procedure changes?
Well, we've had several of those in my tenure here as the patrol division commander, and to be quite candid, we've had some complications regarding working with the state agencies in doing the investigation. There's been some inconsistencies in the way that the investigations have been handled. However, I believe that the BCA has a organization can adequately provide quality investigative services for officer-involved shootings. We have worked with them very closely in developing their protocols and working with them on their protocols for officer-involved shootings and in the aftermath of that. So overall, I think the BCA is a proper venue to do that. I also believe that the county attorney in Anoka County, or the county where the officer-involved shooting had occurred, is the rightful individual to make the charging decision on those incidents as well.
Thank you. The question now goes to Mr. Wise.
Yeah, given that question requires such a precise answer, would you mind repeating the question?
No problem. What do you think are the best practices for investigating officer-involved shootings and informing the public of the results of such investigations and any resulting policy or procedure changes?
Truth be told, I think nowadays we're doing things pretty well. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which is the state agency now that's tasked with conducting officer-involved shootings. As police chief over the last 11 years, I've been a leader of an organization where we had 3 of those incidents, and they're enormously stressful. because you're wanting to provide information to the community as quickly as possible. You want to make sure that there aren't rumors or misinformation, yet simultaneously you have this criminal investigation that's parallel that needs to have the utmost integrity, meaning you can't screw it up. You can't shoot your mouth off on TV and screw it up. So they're very dicey, and it's part of what I would highlight for me as a sheriff's candidate is having that experience. There is no substitute for it when you walk into in my case, in the police department at 3 a.m. after one of these incidents. That said, transparency will always be a focus for the citizens. The only way they'll trust their police department or their sheriff's office is that they hear directly from the leader. The last officer-involved shooting in Coon Rapids happened to be a mental health incident over the winter, and I would invite anybody to Google my interview so they can see how I handled that situation.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, Mr. Wise. What would you do to improve the Sheriff's Department annual report? Do you support inclusion of a more objective data, such as the number of arrests and traffic stops by race, the number of use of force unfounded and founded, complaints, and the number of no-knock warrants executed?
That's a good question. Obviously, I've been front and center with preparing annual reports for my entire time as police chief for the city of Coon Rapids, and frankly, we sit in a meeting and we try to, I don't want to say guess, but make an educated guess at what the public wants to hear from us. And that's changed over time. So those very topics that you're bringing up, 10 years ago, nobody would even have thought to have asked those questions. No-knock warrants being a hot topic wasn't a thing even 5 years ago. I would be completely open to the idea of having a citizens work group that would be focused on writing an annual report, because in the end, the annual report is an assessment of what you've done over the course of the last year. And when you present that annual report to the citizens, you want it to be read. You don't want it, you're not creating it just to have it thrown in a file somewhere, or worse, thrown in the trash. You write it for the sake of people having a sense of confidence in their agency. If people want to know information that's different than what's being published, I'm all ears. And all data, all law enforcement data is public data, and it needs to be available to the public.
Thank you. Question now goes to Mr. Lensmeyer.
Sure. The Sheriff's Office has a complex annual report. We have 6 divisions, and each one provides information regarding the ongoings of that division for the previous year. And I wouldn't be opposed to adding information that people want to see in an annual report. One of the concerns that you have to have is whether that some of the information is collected through the data of traffic stops. One example is the number of traffic stops related to race. That's not something that we necessarily collect. So some of those requests would have to be talked through because certainly some of those things are not collected, and then perhaps they may not be relevant for what the overall community wants to see regarding their sheriff's office and the services that they provided the previous year. But certainly I'd be open to looking at making our annual report more robust, more what the community wants to see. But when I reviewed our most recent one that we submitted a little bit later in the year than we wanted this year, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of what it relays to the community. But certainly, as we want to listen to the community and determine what level of public safety services they want us to provide, if there's things they wanted added or removed, content, the information that they think is important for us to relay for transparency and accountability, I'm all for it.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, Mr. Lensmeyer. What will you do to ensure policies and practices are not contributing to racial inequities?
Well, the nice thing about the Sheriff's Office is our policies are developed through Lexipol, which is a nationally known organization that creates policies for us to ensure that our policies are within obviously the Constitution and the state laws that we have. So we have Lexipol has a number of attorneys that go through it with a fine-tooth comb and ensure that the policies that we provide our officers, our deputies, and staff are second to none, and so that we're covered through that. And when we implement a policy, we understand what parts of the policy can be removed regarding state statute and other reasons, and then there's some parts of the policies that are more recommendations that could be more of a discretion of the sheriff's office. So I think our policies are very, very good, are gone through with a fine-tooth comb from attorneys and from national known individuals, and I'm very confident that the policies that we have in place protect the rights of our community.
Thank you. Question goes to Mr. Wise.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to read the question again, because if I'm not mistaken, equity was a part of the question, was it not? Okay, yeah.
What will you do to ensure policies and practices are not contributing to racial inequities?
Okay. Yeah, equity issues are important. Actually, it'll be one of the few times, I guess, that I'll disagree with the commander. Frankly, I don't like Lexipol. Lexipol is this national organization that writes policy manuals for police departments. At Coon Rapids, we had our own policy manual because we had unique needs of our community that we need to address, not least of which was Coon Rapids is and will continue to be a very diverse city. So in our case, our policy manual is written within our organization, and we're always amenable to making changes when they're deemed appropriate. So in our case, about a year ago or so, we just started what we call a multicultural advisory committee. The purpose of that committee is sort of like it has a lot of ethnic diversity, but its purpose is sort of a citizens academy melding with an equity group to do the exact things that you're talking about, which is to review our policies and procedures and the way we do things from an equity perspective. And at first we weren't sure how well it would be received, but frankly we got good advice on how to start the group, namely by, I'm going to throw credit to Chief Nadeau, who was a Columbia Heights police chief and then went to Maplewood, who we essentially copied his program. But the essence of that group, they meet monthly, they're super engaged. I've been with them a number of times. They want to contribute to make for a better police department via policy and procedure.
Thank you. This will be our last question. It goes to you first, Mr. Wise. What do you find the most rewarding thing about working in law enforcement?
It's not even hard. The most rewarding thing are the citizen interactions. Actually, this just came up today. Now, mind you, I joke that I'm between jobs since I retired June 30th from the Coon Rapids Police Department. But the sincerity of people who show up at the front door to thank both the officers and myself and the culture of the department for the services that they deliver to the community and how much they appreciate the level of service and commitment and professionalism and kindness that the officers share. And they'll show up their appreciation sometimes by a well-written note, a sincere thank you, donuts. So food, there was a period of time that actually the officers worried about getting fat. We were getting so much food during the COVID era. And actually some of them maybe did gain a few pounds during COVID. But there's nothing like looking in the eyes of a citizen and when they give you a sincere thank you, and you can see the emotions within them and how that makes you feel 10 feet tall. That's why I do this job.
Thank you. Mr. Lensmeyer, what do you find the most rewarding thing about working in law enforcement?
As the chief said, it's a service to others. You know, this job isn't about us. It's not about titles. It's not about rank. It's about being influential in the lives of people that are struggling, the lives of our community members. And I concur, you know, since I announced my run for sheriff, I've gotten some letters and some emails regarding some situations and incidents that I had forgotten about that were influential to others. And when you realize the impact that you have on the community, and whether that's me or our deputies. That's why we do this, is that we can make a substantial impact on the lives of our community members, and even some of those are just very minor things, minor interactions. But when we come into a crisis and we can bring hope into their life, that's when we get the feedback, and when we get the notes, and we get the letters from the kids about the interactions that we've had. That's what makes this tough job worth every minute.
Thank you. The candidates will now have up to 1 minute for a closing statement, and we'll go in reverse order from opening questions, and we'll start with Brad Wise.
All right, again, thank you for the opportunity to talk. It's great to get to know the citizens, or to allow the citizens an opportunity to hear from me. But I want them to hear, first of all, that I understand that at this point these are just words. You don't know if I'm well rehearsed, or if I just spent a lot of time thinking about what you might want to know and trying to come up with an answer that might be what I think you want to hear. I've been around a long time in law enforcement in Anoka County, and especially during my time at Coon, there's many people that know me and know how I work. If you don't have a personal story related to how I've worked, I would encourage anybody to seek out people who do know me and ask them questions, and ask them if everything I've said tonight is something that they would believe to be true. Thank you for the opportunity to pursue the job to be Sheriff of Anoka County.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now with his closing statement is Paul Lensmeyer.
Thank you, and thanks for this opportunity as well. It was nice to connect, nice to answer some tough questions, certainly some complicated questions, but certainly if these are the questions that the community needs to hear from us, we are happy to be here. I truly want the best for Anoka County. I want the best person to lead the Sheriff's Office. I believe with my experience, I am that person, but certainly the most important thing is that we identify a leader to put in this position. The Sheriff's Office role, the Sheriff's role has never been more important. Over the last 4 years, we've seen the important role that a sheriff can make. And actually, as I've been speaking with different people, they've said, Paul, why do you want to take on this role in these times? And to be honest, the answer for me is simple. I feel called to do it. I feel led to run for this position. I feel called to serve the community. This has been my community, my home for my entire life. I've grown up with the Sheriff's Office. I started there when I was 18, and I thoroughly enjoy serving the community of Anoka County.
Thank you. You have now heard from the 3 candidates who will be in the primary election for Anoka County Sheriff. The 2 candidates who received the most votes will then move on to the general election. The League thanks the candidates for their participation, NorthMetroTV for taping this forum, the City of Llano Lakes for the use of their facilities, our League volunteers, and you, the audience, for your attendance and interest. Let your voice be heard by voting in the primary on August 9th. Thank you and good night.